What do you do when you're a mangaka? You have a manga in a publication that is serialized for many months, then all of a sudden your manga gets canceled. What do you do? Do you just continue to create and hope your next work becomes more successful? Do you move on to maybe a different form of medium such as video games or visual novels? Or do you just decide to change careers and no longer draw art or draw manga? What do you do in that situation? Because I guarantee you it is very it hurts a lot when your manga gets canceled. It really does. I would assume it's a really heartbreaking moment for a lot of mangakas. But what do they do? I always wondered this question, and for the most part I think a lot of them just move on and just continue creating until one of their works eventually becomes popular, right? But one mangaka decided to go a route that not many do. I'm sure there are plenty who do, but not many do. And this one was surprisingly a very, very interesting story that I wanted to share because I thought of it as a very loony moment. So, yes, welcome to the Loony Bin and welcome to this loony internet moment. So I like to look up stories and find stories that essentially are some of the craziest, some of the looniest stories that you can find on the internet. And for the most part, they usually come around like once every month. And I try to make short videos based around that. Now, this particular internet moment or internet news story comes from a mangaka who decided to take a route after their, manga got canceled that really isn't that much common, at least from my known knowledge. So the mangaka in question is a mangaka known as Panyakawa. They created a manga known as Doujima-kun wa Dojinai. The English translation is Doujima-kun won't be disturbed. Now, to give you a short synopsis of this manga, it is similar to the manga that you probably heard about called Takagi-kun. I don't remember what the full name is, but it's essentially a manga about, this female character who's teasing this, male character that she has a crush on. And a lot of these type of mangas where, one of the characters teases the other, have started to pop up a lot more because it's now become a very popular, section of the rom-com genre. And this manga essentially is similar, except this time the boy is the male character is more of the story character who tries to get embarrassed by the female character, but she winds up being the one who gets embarrassed in the end because she just cannot crack the male character into saying something embarrassing or making him blush or anything like that. Very similar concept, and unfortunately this manga did get canceled. After several months it did get canceled, and for the most part I read through the manga and it's okay. It's pretty decent. I wouldn't call it as like a top tier rom-com because it reminded me a lot of Takagi-kun, which I guess is the standard of those type of manga. And it was okay. I personally hate seeing manga get canceled because I really feel bad for the mangaka. But in terms of like why or like was there any reason for the manga to get canceled, I could see why the publication decided to cancel it, because it probably didn't attract viewership because of how much similar it is to other manga in that genre, and it just probably didn't really hit well with the viewers or the readers essentially. But unfortunately it did get canceled, and the story is that apparently the mangaka Ponyakawa decided to go a route that's very unique. The reason why I say it's unique because most mangaka that you probably know of actually did start off going into R18 content first before having a manga that becomes serialized in a publication like Shonen Jump. The best example that I could give you is Shokugeki no Soma, or known as Food Wars. And the artist for that manga actually was a really big and famous R18 content producer. He went by a different name, but he did create R18 content before finally going into Shonen Jump and getting a manga serialized. Now, that is essentially the goal for a lot of mangaka authors, because when you get serialized, you get a lot more money. You get a lot good money flow. With R18 content, unless you're really huge and really popular, the money flow isn't really there. So, that's why a lot of mangakas hope that one day they get a publication that becomes serialized. This manga author had the opportunity for, to get it published and have a serialization to get good money flow, but unfortunately, like I said, it got canceled. So he decided that he went back into more of the R18 content route. Now, when I say back into the R18 content route, most of the time they start creating H manga or doujinshi of other series, like parodies of the series. But this mangaka essentially decided to use the canceled manga that he created to create his own R18 content with it. And thus, he created a NTR, doujin of his own manga. For those who do not know what NTR is, good, because it's not a tag that a lot of people are very happy with, because they think it's a terrible, fetish, I guess you could say. But it is short for neto rare, which, if you want an English equivalence of what that essentially is, it's essentially being cucked, where a character steals, a female or male character away from either another male or female character, and essentially that female character gets stolen by that side character. Unfortunately, it's a very popular fetish in Japan and a lot of R18 circles, and Ponyakawa decided to create an NTR manga based off his work. Now, did I read that R18 chapter that he created? Yes, I did. I read it, and I will say one thing. It definitely did have NTR, subject matter to it, but it wasn't necessarily NTR. What it was essentially is more towards the SA, the sexual assault aspect of R18 content, where the female character of the manga Doujima-kun wa Donjinai was essentially gotten pictures taken of her in being nude, and essentially a couple of guys decided to cut open her, swimwear, take pictures, and even one decided to take out the genitalia to let's just say do something really bad to her. I definitely did not like it at all. It was gross. It was like that kind of stuff is just so. Oh, I hate that kind of content so much. The only reason why I would even read that is for a YouTube video like this, and I did. I hated it. But yeah, it wasn't necessarily full blown NTR, getting cucked, but it definitely went down a bad path, essentially a bad ending to the story, and it was not good. You could definitely look for it if you want to, but I don't recommend it, especially if you do not like that kind of content. But yes, he created that content, and for the most part, a lot of people believe that it was because of pettiness, of that he was angry, that he wanted to burn the world, take everyone down with him because he was so angry that his manga got canceled. However, apparently it wasn't because he was petty. It wasn't because the mangaka author was angry. No, he did it, or they did it, because they got commissioned to do so. In other words, someone paid the manga author money to take his serialized work and create a NTR chapter of it, or a R18 content of it. And there's a lot of people out there who do commissions like that. I don't necessarily try to shame fetishes and stuff like that, but god damn, I hate that kind of stuff. I really do. I hate seeing it. I hate looking at it, and god damn it. But yes, there is some sort of misinformation out there that the author did this out of anger and pettiness. No, he did it because he was commissioned. And in terms of looking at it through the author's perspective, the author's point of view, I can understand why he would do it, even though he might not have the same morals, or maybe he might not even like that sort of content as well. I can understand why he did it, because he just lost his income, right? He lost the money flow that he will get. He probably still gets it from the manga books getting sold and whatnot, but he lost his money flow, right? And artists tend to really have a short career, unless you become really big. But it's hard being an artist. It's very hard to get good money flow, good consistent money going through, right? And it sucks. It really sucks sometimes being an artist unless you get really big. you tend to, do things that you may not necessarily agree with to make money, and that's more than likely what Panyakawa decided to do. And like I said, I can't blame him for taking the money, because at the end of the day, it's hard. You need money flow. You just lost all your, the money flow that's coming into. You lost money. You need to make money somehow, and you do it via, getting commission to draw things, and that's where a lot of artists tend to get their money from. So, at the end of the day, I do not blame the artist for doing it. I just don't like the content. I blame the person who commissioned that, right? But yeah, I just can't blame the artist for it, because he needs money. You need money to survive. It's better to make money, despite your morals in the art world, right? As long as you make money. Sometimes you just have to, suck it up, especially if you don't have any other source of income. It's the unfortunate world of being an artist. And there's a lot of artists who don't still do it, but there are times when, you have no other choice. You need food. I'd rather you have food and have a home than, not do something and wind up with no food and homeless, I'd rather that, have money, have food, have a home, And yeah, unfortunately, that is the story of Doujima-kun wa Dojinai's mangaka, who, after getting canceled, he needed money, so he got commissioned to draw an NTR chapter of this manga. And it's a very rare instance of something like this happening, or a very rare instance of this happening that becomes public. And yeah, it's a shame. I hopefully the manga author can get another work published, so he doesn't have to get commissioned to do stuff like this. But at the end of the day, money is money, and money is money. But yeah, thank you so much for watching this video. Hopefully you enjoyed it, and I'll talk to you guys next time. Please comment, like, subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time. All right, bye bye.